네, 로자 마리아 고메즈 스타우더님의 강연 잘 들었습니다. 유익한 강연이었습니다. 네, 계속해서 다음으로는 Oncology Market in 브라질에 대해 강연해 주실 브라질 바이탈 연구소 비즈니스 국장이신 프리실라 비아나 파라노 리마님입니다. 네, 국장님의 강연 지금부터 함께 보시겠습니다.
Hi, my name is Priscilla Palhano. I'm head of business at Instituto Vital Brazil, a public laboratory from the Rio de Janeiro government, and I'm here to talk to you just a little more about oncology market in Brazil. So, in the opportunity of this presentation is to bring to you a little more about Brazilian markets, where you can find some data that could help you to trace strategies for your company that would like to bring some oncology drugs to Brazil, okay? And first of all, I would like to say why oncology market is strategic in Brazil. And so first I would like to make an overview about the oncology cancer cases around the world. And the cancer is the main cause of disease in the world in the past year, okay? And something for about 9.6 million deaths per year, according to the World Health Organization. And just a second, here, no, it's better. And about 18 million of new cases in the year of 2018 around the world. 18 million of cancer new cases just in 1 year. And from 1990 to 2020, we had an increase of global life expectancy from 65.3 years old to 76.7 years old. And in Brazil, this scenario is very worrying for the politicians, because when the population are aging, what's occurring is that the cancer cases appear with more frequently, and we need to trace some policies, some public policies in the health system in order to follow the aging of the population. And the cancer scenario, the oncology, is a strategy area for the Brazilian health system, okay? And we have 6% of cancer cases around the world located in the developing country, and these include Africa, Asia, Central and South America. And Brazil is one of most representative country of these areas, okay? And this country concentrates also 70% of cancer deaths in the world. And this shows how is the cancer evolution in the patient in these countries, in order that most of them evolve to the death, and this is not so good. So here we have a good opportunity for some specific kinds of medicines, of oncology medicines, in order to prevent the evolution, the case to the death, okay? And including some aspects, we have the high social and economical impacts in the country. In Brazil, we have a high economic and social impact of the cancer, because we are a large country with a very expensive, a very high population, okay? And the cancer, it's a high taxes of incidence in the country. So we have many financial questions that are increased in the oncology scenario that surrounds the population in Brazil. And the expectation for the next 3 years, including the 2020, okay, to 2022, the expectation is something about 625,000 new cases of cancer in each year. So this number, 625,000, is the number of cases per year in the next 3 years in Brazil. And I'm not gonna bring to you in financial numbers the volume of this market, but I will present some number of cases in Brazil in order that you can evaluate, you can access and make a strategy of the signs, the total amount of Brazilian markets based on the cancer cases, because we have many different types of medicines, of drugs for different kinds of cancer, and it includes some first generation, second generation drugs, and this has impact in the total cost. So I prefer not to bring the financial numbers, but so the number of cases in order that you can to calculate the total amount of the market based on these cases, okay? And here has the burden of cancer in Brazil in the past 2 years. And the total population in Brazil is something around 211 millions people in the country, okay? And the number of cancer in 2018 were something about 560,000 cases, okay? And almost half of the case evoluted to deaths. So this is very worrying for us, okay? Is the high number of deaths also. And here in the graphic on the right side, I bring to you the 10 most common cancer cases in Brazil. So in the first place, we have the breast, okay, the breast cancer for women. And in the second place, we have prostate cancer case. And another some important cancer case, it's about bladder, cervix, uterus, colorectal, lung, pancreas, prostate, stomach, and thyroid. And one kind of cancer that call us the attention is the lung cancer. That it's not the most one that have the incidence, but the mortality is very high. So when you look for the mortality rates, we can evaluate and how is the opportunity for some specific drugs in these high mortality rates. Okay, this could be an opportunity for your company come to Brazil with some innovative drug or some generic drug with low costs that could promote the access for all the population, the Brazil population, in order to decrease this rate of death. Okay. And here in this slide is the incidence of many types of cancer, but in a proportional distribution of the 10 most common by type, by sex, and except the non-melanoma skins. Because non-melanoma skins, we had a high number of people with this kind of cancer in Brazil, but they are not considered in the statistical numbers that I'm showing to you, okay? So we have here divided from men and women, the cases, okay? We have the cases in percentage, and we have the case in the full numbers. And so we can hear, in this case, they're considering the cancer in the primary location, okay? You're not considering metastatic cancer. It's where the cancer born in the women and the men. So as I showed in the past slide, prostate is the most common cancer in men, and breast, family breast, is the most cancer in the women. Okay, here we have the general numbers, as you can see. Okay, and I will pass to the next slide. And in Brazil, we have what we call a unified health system. It's a public health system that is maintained by our Ministry of Health. And how this unified health system, how is the capacity of this system that is supporting the oncology scenario in Brazil? Okay, and first I need to pay attention that these numbers is the number per 10,000 cancer patients, okay? So, and the first parameter that I would to explain a little more is that we have a high quality and population-based cancer registry. So the availability of this information, we has a high quality because how our health system is unified, we can collect many data, and these data are so trustable, okay? And the quality of mortality registration, it's also high quality, this rate, okay? It's also trustable because we have a unified health system that can collect and process these data. And the next parameter, we have some numbers here, okay? We have the number of external beam radiotherapy as photon and electron. It's a 6.4, okay, per each 10,000 cancer patients. We have 99.9 mammographs per each 10,000 cancer patients, okay? And we have 83.3 of CT scanners. We have 57.7 of MRI scanners, and we have 2.6 of PET or PET-CT scanners per each 10,000 cancer patients. And talking about a little more about workforce in Brazil, it's available. Yes, we have available a staff in the Ministry of Health who dedicates a significant proportion of their team to cancer. Okay, so in this number of workforce, we are also considering the number for each 10,000 cancer patient, as you can see in the little small letters here in the subtitle. So we have something about 13.1 radiation oncologists. We have 13.1 of medical physicists. We have surgeons, it's the highest rate. We have 1,266.7 surgeons in the country per each 10,000 patients, okay? We have 230 radiologists. We have 17.1 nuclear medicine physicians. And curious information is that we have no available data of number that includes medical and pathology lab scientists. And this could be another opportunity, maybe so, because if you have not data enough collected, could be an opportunity if you have some structure of research and development, and you could trace some strategy partnerships with Brazilian universities, with Brazilian center labs to develop a new research in cancer and scenario in Brazil, okay? And how is the formulating response of our unified health system that we call by SUS, okay? I will tell you some responses that we are generating and why is important you to know our number, okay? What's the numbers of our systems and why is important you know just a little more about the formulating response, because this constructs the highest scenario of oncology in Brazil. And so through some of these information, it could help your company to construct a strategy to bring your oncology drug to Brazil. If you see, oh, in Brazil you have some doctors for the patients, we have this number of equipments, so the oncology is treated from this way in Brazil, okay? And according to our response, we have integrated NCD plan in stage of operational. We have an NCCP include cancer types in operational status. We have an empower measures fully implemented and achieved. This is our 5, okay? And yes, we have a cancer management guidelines. Yes, we have palliative care included, their operational integrated NCD plan. We have 3 kinds of treatment service in our public health system. And these kinds of treatments in the cancer and in the oncology scenario is the surgery, the radiotherapy, and the chemotherapy. Okay, and yes, we have a program for the breast cancer screening, sorry. And for this program of breast screening for the human, the program starting in the 50 years old women. Women younger than this are not elected for the program, and from 50 years old and older, they are elected for the program in Brazil. Okay, these are the family public for the health public for cancer, for breast cancer in Brazil. And we have 6 public cancer centers per each 10,000 cancer patients. Okay, for each 10,000 cancer patients, we have 6 centers, cancer centers for treatment. And these centers are public. It's important to know because private centers, we have many around the country, but in the public system, we have just 6 per each 10,000 patients. And we have guidelines in early detection program for 4 kinds of cancer, that is breast, cervix, colon, and childhood. Okay, and the pathology service are generally available. Our bone marrow transplantation capacity are generally available, and the palliative care availability are generally available also in the community and home-based care. Okay, and we have 444 the availability of opioids for pain management. And it's important to know that this number of opioids are defined as daily doses for statistical purpose, the SDD, per million inhabitants per day. Okay? And now I will show you something about the modalities of the strategies for these products. We have the 4 big classes of modalities that you could bring your company to Brazil in the oncology scenario. The first of all, that I think it's most important, not most important, but it's much important in this moment, is the early detection diagnosis in oncology. And this early detection, this kinds of diagnosis is included in the legislation about Anvisa, that is the resolution of collegiate board RGC number 36 from 2015. So if you would like to know a little more about how this kind of product is regulated in Brazil by Anvisa, you could access this legislation, okay? The second modality is the oncological surgeries, and the kind of product that you could bring to Brazil is the health products that are involved in the oncology surgeries, and the legislation from Anvisa that regulates this kind of products is the health product. It's the resolution of collegiate boards of director RGC number 185 from 2001. Okay, the third class, there is the most rentability involved. It's in the chemotherapy. Okay, so we have 3 subclasses. The first one is the chemotherapy drugs. So is the higher profiting the pharmaceutical company in the country. We have some kinds of drugs is in the class of hormonal treatments, targeted therapies, protein inhibitors, and monoclonal antibodies. Okay, the second subclass is the immunotherapy, and the third subclass are other kinds of therapy that is not much common, but we also can find this in Brazil. There is a cellular blocker therapy and cell therapy in general ways. And the third, but not less important, we have the palliative care, okay, for those patients that are in the final stages and you need to decrease the pain that these patients are getting harder in each day with the evolution of this disease. And here we have some classes of medicines and some class of phytomedicines that are the herbals. Okay, then in this slide I put the web link of the how can I say, we have many different laws for herbals and phytotherapy in Brazil. And all these laws are included together in only one package web page. And this is the web page where you can find more about the legislation that regulates our herbals and phytotherapies in Brazil, okay? And here, coming back in the past slide, we need to get an special attention to the diagnosis. And why special attention to the diagnosis? Because we can think that about 33% of the case could be cured if detected early and treated at an early stage, okay? And about also a 33% could be avoided altogether with the modification already know the risk factors. So investing in prevention and early diagnosis is essential for our public health system, because if you have an early diagnosis and in a specific diagnosis, you could prevent not just the cancer, but you could prevent the evolution of the disease in the patients. So you have less costs from the health system with each patient. So it's an important point that the Brazilian policies could start to looking for. And this is a big opportunity market in Brazil for the precision diagnosis for oncology, but we can think that it's not so easy. We have some barriers. And the biggest barrier for this market is the Ministry of Health prepared to include in the unified health public system the drugs needed to meet the clinical protocols of precision medicines? And why am I talking about it? Because in the public health in Brazil, it's in the law that the Ministry of Health should provide the drugs that each patient necessity and the needs of each patient, okay? And if the Ministry of Health included as a strategic product, as a free distribution for the population, some kinds of precision diagnosis, maybe the Ministry of Health are not prepared to offer to these patients the specific drugs to treat their cancers. So this could be this could walk together the specific diagnosis and the new generations of drugs that will be necessary to treat these patients. So maybe the opportunity for precision diagnosis at this moment in Brazil could be in the private market, but it doesn't mean that the public market won't be an opportunity also. But we need to trace some barriers, as I told you, in order to check. And for some kinds of specific diagnosis, what kind of specific drugs are strategic for the Brazilian Ministry of Health? Okay, so this is one question that could be taken a little more attention. And here I bring to you two graphics where in the first we have the estimate past and future trends in the total cancer per years for breast cancer and lung cancer. And you know that 8 years ago we have not so low, but we have the lowest rates, and these rates are increasing. And for the next 20 years, maybe these rates will be 40% more for breast cancer, something about this, and will be the double number of cases for lung cancer in the next 20 years. And so this is why Brazilian is also a strategic market, because the trends for the cancer in the population will increase the numbers each year more and more and more. And in the other hand, here in the second graphic in the right, we have the probability of premature death from cancer per year. The death for cancer is decreasing. And why is decreasing the number of deaths? Because of the new generation of drugs that we prevail and we hope that will come to the country, okay? And we know that in the red line, we have this rate decreasing, and in the black line, we have the specific diagnosis target. So we have a lower rate because with a specific diagnosis in early stage, you could offer to the patient a specific therapy, and you could decrease the rate of deaths. Okay. And now let's talk a little more about Brazilian market insertion. How can you enter in the Brazilian market? And first, the initial condition is you have the register of the product in Anvisa. Okay, and for this, why do you need for get this register? First, you need the company, and your company as a manufacturer needs to have an Anvisa Good Manufacturing Practice certificate. And for this, the company that asks for this certification at Anvisa should be registered at Brazil. So your company can open a branch in Brazil, or you could establish a commercial or technological partnerships where the partner in Brazil could ask for the certificate of your company. Okay, so in order to your company got the certificate, or you establish a branch in Brazil, or you establish a partnership with a Brazilian company. And the second, but not least, you have manufacturing dossier approved by Anvisa. So one point that we need to pay attention is that to evaluate all the parameters that is required by Anvisa in order that your product could be approved. So first, we also recommend that your company or your partner in Brazil schedule some rounds of meeting with Anvisa to discuss the protocol of clinical trials of drug development in order to see if the protocol designed by your company that was registered in your country, in Korea, or in another country around the world, if this protocol are safe, are accepted by Anvisa. Because in some cases, Anvisa requires specific data and specific parameters for Brazilian region as a climate region, as a kind of people that were included in the clinical trials. So you need to think in the development of your drug according to the market that you could that you would like to start. So if you want to come to Brazil, it will be very important that you think in what kind of protocol was designed by development of your product in order to be accepted by Anvisa. Okay, and Anvisa it's very open as for some meetings to discuss this protocol in order to avoid the declination of a registry, or if it will fall in some requirements, it will not be good. It will spend much time to you attend to these requirements. So it's also better you spend much time and a little money planning this dossier to petition at Visa, that if you fill this register in Anvisa and the dossier it's not okay. And here for the pricing strategy, what could you say? What could be the winning strategy for coming to Brazil in a competitive analysis? First, you need to check who are your competitors in Brazil. Okay, who are the companies that already has the product similar to yours registered in Brazil? Is your product an innovative product, or is your product a generic product that will be registered in Brazil? And so you also need to check price, because when you see the price, it's important to make a comparative analysis with the companies that are already established in Brazil, because we have some national big farmers that are growing up each year more and more, and they are very aggressive price. Okay, and if you are a forage company, a company located abroad Brazil, probably your price will start in dollar in another change, and so you need to to convert this dollar into Brazilian reais and see if your price is really competitive with the price that is already priced in Brazil markets. Just not only for the national big farmers, for the other multinational that has already a branch in Brazil, and they are more specialized in the pricing policies according to what price a price says in the markets, okay? And the clinical development, it's another point that you should pay attention, because depending on the strategy that you could bring your product to Brazil, if your product is an innovative drug or if it is a generic drug, you have different ways and different costs of protocol for clinical trials, for the drug development in all the process. So if your drug is a generic, probably you could achieve a more cheap price. But if your product is an innovative drug, probably you will have more expenses during the development of this drug, okay, and your price will be higher. But in the other hand, if you have an innovative drug, your price could be higher because you won't have any competitors for your products or your generation of products here in Brazil. So in the winning strategy, you should combine these three characteristics. And who are your competitors? What price what's your price strategy to bring your product to Brazil, considering the national big pharmas and the multinational pharmaceutical industry that is already established in Brazil? And what kind of products are you developing? Is it generic or is it innovative? And how this could interfere in your price, in your final price here in Brazil? So when you start to think if you are bringing an innovative drug or a generic drug, you need to raise the regulatory requirements for the health registration in both cases, okay? And strategically evaluate the advantage and disadvantage of each type of product, because you need to consider some parameters as the cost of development, the number of competing companies, the price that you could bring your product to Brazil, and the price that the other companies price it here in the Brazilian markets, and the time for evaluation and registration by Anvisa. For example, if you have an innovative drug, probably it will take much time to Anvisa evaluate it and get the response about if your register was approved, declined, or if there is some requirements of extra informations. Okay, but if you have a generic drug, probably you won't have many expenses, and you just will need to do some kind of pharmaceutical equivalence or bioequivalence in order to establish a comparison parameters with the reference drugs in Brazil. And just pay attention, because if you are bringing innovative products to Brazil, you want to need to pay attention if your product could have a patent in Brazil, and you should take some intellectual property and cares in this case. And what kind of Brazilian markets you will find here in the country? You have two kinds of markets. You have the public markets and the private markets. In the public markets, the products are centrally purchased by the Ministry of Health, or in a decentralized acquisition by the health state secretariats. Okay, and the drugs, this kind of drugs could be purchased through a bidding or through a direct purchase. And how does it occur? A direct purchase is made by the official laboratories or public laboratories that you also call, in order that these public laboratories could sell directly to the Ministry of Health and the state secretaries of health. Okay, and how could you achieve this market? If you could try the public market through the bidding, you should be established a branch in Brazil, should be registered in Brazil, or have a partner registered in Brazil. Okay, but if you have intention to sell, to trace a strategy for cell directive for the Ministry of Health, you should establish a partnership with a public laboratory, and this partnership should include a technology transfer project, okay? And this technology transfer project, you should transfer the technology for the public laboratory in order that this national laboratory could be sustainable in the case of this technology. So this technology should be internalized by the country, okay? And during the period that you are transferring the technology for the public laboratory, you could sell your manufactured product to the Ministry of Health, because we understand that the public laboratory will need some years to internalize the technology. And during this process, you could sell your product, your own products manufactured. But on the other hand, the public laboratory will need to get a clone register in Anvisa of your register, or the laboratory could fill the matrix register, and you don't have a register in Brazil. So this kind of strategy for entering the public market should be evaluated. And the drugs must be integrated the therapeutic guidelines of the Ministry of Health. If you are looking for a centralized per case, because the Ministry of Health in the centralized per case is a huge per case that will be achieved on the country, all the population of Brazil, and the efforts of sale are less. But if you would like to sell for decentralized process to the state health secretariats, you have a highest effort of sales, okay? But you could work with a more variable portfolio of drugs, of oncology drugs, because just few kinds of drugs are centralized by the ministry, because not all the drugs are integrated in the therapeutic guidelines from Ministry of Health. And in the private market, he should establish a partnership with a Brazilian company, as I already said, or open a branch in Brazil. So you have some different kinds of segments which you could sell your product. But in generally, your business will be a model B2B, business to business, where you can sell to national distributors or for pharmacies, for oncology clinics and hospitals. So this could be your clients in Brazil. And it's a good market also. And here in the last for close our presentation, I will show you the international partners in Brazilian public markets. And here, if you can see, we have two important Korean companies like Autogen and Samsung Bioapps that are entering in the Brazilian public market, and they have another companies from other parts of the world. So as you can see, we have a success cases in the international companies. And so I think I could help you with this process. And if you have any doubts, please feel free to contact me. And it will be a pleasure to me to answer of you. Thank you so much.